As we go through life, we experience lots of things, and I call these somewhat, call them defining moments, points in time, kind of inflection points, where we're challenged to go beyond what we think we're capable of, or we're facing an obstacle, and we have to find some way to overcome it, and we do. And we find a way through, and we come out stronger on the other side. Is there a point in time in your life that you recall that was really sort of your defining moment?
I think I have several.
Hello, everyone. John Fenton here, the CEO Sensei, and I'm so excited to be with my good friend, Trace Blackmore. Hello, Trace.
Hi, it's good to be here.
It's great to have you on. And Trace, Trace and I met about a year and a half ago. We were both speaking. I spoke before him. He spoke right after me, and I got a chance to listen to his speech, and I was really impressed with his style and his humor and the information that he shared. And he's my first guest in my new format, my new show, Conversations with the CEO Sensei. And I'm just so pleased to have you on here.
Well, thank you for that. I have to tell you that I did go after you. So I was thinking about what I was going to say. So if you told me what you said, it would be absolutely brand new. I was so nervous during that time. But with that said, I am honored to be your first guest.
That's really cool. It's really cool. And, Trace, I've been so impressed with you as a human being, and you're a CEO and a business leader, and also the host of a great podcast, Scaling Up H2O.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We've been doing the podcast for this April. It will be 4 years.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah, a friend of mine told me, Trace, you've got a good voice for a podcast. Have you ever thought about doing your own podcast? And I said, well, thanks for that compliment. What's a podcast? I had no idea.
We do, as I mentioned earlier, you do have a great radio voice, right? So very, very good baritone or whatever tone there, very tonal quality there. And tell me about your company.
So my company is Blackmore Enterprises. We do industrial water treatment. And your listeners are probably saying, what the heck is industrial water treatment? We think of water coming out of our faucet, but water is used in so many processes. So the water that we treat is not necessarily the water that you're going to drink, but it's the water that's used to transfer the heat on the things that are made that we consume. Maybe it's milk jugs, maybe it's beer bottles, whatever that is. Things are put in molds, and then water disperses that heat so it can go and continue to make more milk jugs or whatever it is. And what happens with water is it will naturally corrode whatever it's in. Well, that expensive equipment, people don't want it to corrode, so we try to slow that down as best we can. We try to keep things clean within the water, so we don't want things to scale out. We don't want things to grow in the water. In the news lately, you might have heard terms like Legionella, and that's a bacteria that can cause pneumonia. Of course, nobody wants that. And then just general dirt and debris that gets in the water. All of those things are what you have to deal with if you use water as a heat transfer medium. And you might be thinking, well, why would I want to use water if I've got to deal with those things? But water is, one, it's abundant on the planet. We have to take care of it. We have to be great stewards with it. But water can transfer heat like no other substance on the planet. So things that we make can't hold a candle, no pun intended, to what water is able to carry as far as heat. So we're able to save a tremendous amount of resources if we use water properly.
Wow, that's really amazing. And I mean, obviously we can live with without a lot of things, but water we have to have, right?
Absolutely.
We have to have water. And what got you into this business? I'm curious about what propelled you, if you will, into this business of water and industrial water.
I joke and I tell people it was court ordered, but actually it was my father that got me involved in this business. It's a niche business, and unless you know about it, I don't think you would go looking for it. But my father did exactly what I do. He never owned his own business. He worked for somebody. Mm-hmm. And then the company we both worked for got sold to a company that neither of us really wanted to work for. So he retired and I started my own firm.
Mm. And how long have you been in business now?
I have been in business since 2004.
Great. So you've seen a lot of ups and downs, I imagine. Starting off in 2004 was a heady time. And
Absolutely.
2008 and
No,
9 happened, right?
I'm knocking on something as I answer this, but the products that I mentioned that are that the water we treat are involved in, those are needed during all climates of economy. So luckily, we might see a little ripple, but not a huge upset in our marketplace because everybody needs the services that we provide,
Mm.
so those products can roll out the door.
Yeah, certainly probably an essential business.
Yes, in fact, we got a letter from Homeland Security
Mm.
when all the lockdowns started taking place saying that you are an essential business and it's expected that your people will continue servicing. We got a little card and everything.
Wow. It's official. You are an essential business. Wow. So, as we go through life, we experience lots of things, and I call these somewhat, call them defining moments, points in time, kind of inflection points, where we're challenged to go beyond what we think we're capable of, or we're facing an obstacle and we have to find some way to overcome it. And we do, and we find a way through and we come out stronger on the other side. Is there a point in time in your life that you recall that was really sort of your defining moment?
I think I have several.
Okay.
If I was raised in Richmond, Virginia, that's where my father taught me the craft of water treatment, and we were working together for the company that I alluded to before. And I got the job as a project manager here in Atlanta, and my father did not want me to go.
Mm.
He and I communicated pretty well together. He would sell, I would service. He had a pretty good thing. I had a pretty good thing, but it wasn't the next step. And this was the next step. And my dad pretty angrily instructed that I wasn't going, and I went. And later, the contract that brought me down, the company actually lost it. And then I was involved with sales. And then recently, or then not too long after that, the company was bought and sold, and I decided to start my own firm. I would never have made that decision if I was back in Richmond, Virginia. Probably the best is maybe my dad and I would have started a company, but he was really looking forward to retirement at that time. And I don't think I had the experiences. I mean, just moving from where you were born and spent your entire life to a brand new place and making things worse, I wouldn't have experienced that. And I don't think I would own a business today had it not been for that moment.
Was that a hard decision to make?
It was definitely, my dad actually didn't talk to me for about a month after I made
Mm.
that decision. It was a good decision for my wife and I, and my wife decided to go to pharmacy school when we moved down here. And that was about 2000 when that happened. My dad and I had since made things up, and it definitely turned out to be a great decision, but it was one of the hardest decisions because of all the things I had working against it.
Yeah. So what were some of the biggest challenges you faced?
Well, one, my wife had a job. She didn't have a job in the new place in Atlanta, so we had to deal with that, and it wasn't fair for me to just uproot her. So we had to decide that it was a good family decision. Of course, the relationship with my dad, that probably goes without saying. And then I was put in probably my first management role. Up until that time, I was responsible for myself. But now I was responsible for 7 people, which eventually came 10 and then 15, I believe. And now I don't look at that as a huge, burden to manage. But at the time I had managed one person. So I didn't know what I didn't know. Maybe that's why I did it. I didn't know what to be scared of, but I had a good team, and I always let my team know that, I didn't know everything. But I was going to do my best job to find out what my blind spots were. And I always left an open door that if they saw a blind spot, by all means, tell me, because I need to know that.
Wow, that's really enlightened leadership. I mean, most leaders don't realize they have blind spots. I mean, we all have them.
You're right. And I think the biggest detriment is when pride gets in the way and we don't acknowledge that, or we don't empower other people to help us with that.
So what do you think is now, I imagine there was no rule book or playbook on how to lead people, right? Like you didn't have a roadmap, right? So what are some of the things that are most important to you in terms of leadership?
It's a question I can think of about 12 different answers to. One of the biggest things that comes to mind is a book that was given to me when I was 19. It was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey. And to this day, probably 35-year-old book, I would imagine.
Right.
It is still as relevant today as it was back then. And at the time, I didn't realize what a gift it was that somebody had given me. But I read that book and I had a lot of time in the car. And at that time, Franklin Covey, the company that put the book out, they had a lot of CDs. Do you remember those devices?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So
I go all the way back. I go all the
these.
way back to tapes and 8-track tapes.
So I would buy all these sets, and they would focus on one habit, or they would come out with another book that would focus in on one aspect of it. So I would listen to all those because, truth be told, there's a lot of traffic here in Atlanta. So
Sure.
I had plenty of time to do it. And I just learned so much from that. And then when a situation would present itself, I would say, well, hey, that's something that I've listened to or that I've read. Let me try that. And a lot of times, especially if it was dealing with somebody else, I would be upfront and I would say, look, I can see that we're having a disagreement here, and we both feel very strong about how we see the situation. I've read this book that tells us we need to acknowledge that. And I really want to understand how you feel before you understand how I feel. Again, I'm new at this, so let's help each other with that. John, you go first. You explained your view of the situation, and I promise I won't start explaining my view until I can relay it back to you to your understanding and your agreement. And normally people would say, sure, why wouldn't I do that? That calms the mood a little bit. And if my intention is to truly understand you, most people, they're listening with the intent to respond, not with the intent to understand.
Right.
And I found, I would say 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, that if you and I were in a disagreement, if we're truly worried about understanding each other, then once I understand you, you're normally about this far away on what I'm already thinking of. It's just, I couldn't get there because I was worried about talking. You were worried about talking. So I would say that was one of the best gifts somebody ever gave me by saying, hey, here's a book by Stephen Covey.
And that's one of his 7 habits, right? Isn't it? What's the one that really resonates with you of those 7 habits?
So that's habit 5 that I just explained, that seek first to understand before it's understood. And I'm just going to do a commercial for that book, but I really do like it. The 7 habits, the first 3, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first. That's what we do for ourselves. That's how we get grounded in ourselves. And we have to do those 3 habits first in order for you and I to work together. Then, so the first 3 habits is the private victory. The next 3 habits is the public victory. And that is think win-win. So that's the mindset. I have to think I want to win as much for you as I do for myself. If I have that mindset, that opens up the door that I'm secure with myself. And it's okay if you change my mind, because that's not where I'm grounded.
Right.
My concern is I want you to win. I want me to win. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to listen to you first. And the fruit of that, and that's habit 5, seek first, understand before we're understood. And the fruit of that is habit 6, which is synergy. You and I, 1 + 1 = 3 or more. And then there's a circle that encompasses all the habits, which is habit 7, and that's sharpen the saw. If we don't take care of ourselves, nothing else matters.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. You could teach a whole course on this. You could do your podcast just on this.
I think I'm the world's first 7 habits nerd.
Yeah. I mean, I had early on in my career, we did a training for leaders in our firm. I was in the public accounting world, international CPA firm. And that's what we focused on, was the 7 habits. That was the base of all of our training through that process. That's really awesome. So, as you move forward in your business, I know you have lots of things going on. So, what are some things that you're looking forward to in the future of your business, or really where do you see things going for your business and for yourself personally?
Well, I would, something I've started recently, and when you and I met to record the podcast, I mentioned this. I had just started a mastermind group.
Hmm.
So within my industry, we've almost got 40 members so far.
That's awesome.
And we get together on a weekly basis. We talk with each other about particular issues. And we have a problem solving track where we're not allowed to give advice. I know that sounds
Mhm.
weird, right? We're only allowed to ask clarifying questions with the whole mindset that we need to understand better before we can give that advice.
Mhm.
Some little habit 6 stuff
Right.
there,
Right.
or habit 5 stuff there. And then only when we understand, we then give that advice. And John, you've been great. I know you've helped the mastermind group a couple of times with all of your skill.
Mhm.
So we're trying to do that. We're also trying to allow the water treatment community to know that it's okay to use water, but we have to be responsible with it. Everybody thinks,
Mhm.
oh, well, maybe I need to move away from water so it's more responsible. Well, as I explained earlier, if we use water because of its ability to grab all of that heat and in itself not get warmer,
Mhm.
the equipment needs a smaller footprint. It's a
Mhm.
lot more efficient. So we're
Mhm.
actually using less energy when we use water. Now, if we can make sure the water we use, we can use it for the longest amount of time as we can before we discharge it. That's the best of both worlds. And people don't necessarily make that connection. So we're trying to make sure that our customers understand that they have a system that's environmentally friendly, but we can tweak it and make it even more so.
Yeah. Protecting our resources and finding ways to use them more efficiently and honoring those resources, I think is really important. And tell me about who's your ideal customer?
So our ideal customer would be somebody maybe like an office building, a school, a manufacturing facility, a brewery, a dairy, along those lines. So
Hmm.
they would actually use water within their process.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to think if there's some other industries. I think there are, but by and large, those are the big ones. Hospitals.
Right. And as I
Mhm.
recall, you're an industry leader. Is that right? You're in your association leadership track. Is that right?
I'm humbled and also pleased to announce that I was nominated the Water Technologist of the Year this
Oh,
year.
amazing. Congratulations.
So yeah, so finally something good in 2020.
There you go. Yeah, we're all looking for the good now, right? So what a crazy year it has been, my friend.
Absolutely.
It's funny because we did that. When we met at your office, actually do the podcast, and it's like it seems like forever ago. It was last February. It was before COVID, right? And and
I
so
think there was just information on the news, and I
right.
remember we were like, "What do you think will happen?" And you
Hmm.
said, "I don't
Hmm.
know. What do you think is going to happen?"
Right. Who knew? Um, that's really amazing. And you're an amazing leader and business owner. And I really, taking that leap, right, leap of faith to have your own business. I mean, it has to be scary. And so I really want to acknowledge you for taking that leap. I think you said that was a good decision you made years ago, right? Back in 2004, I think you said, right?
Yes, it was a good decision in many ways. One, I truly enjoy what I've built and the people that have helped me along the way to build it.
Hmm.
But I don't know how good of an employee I really was. Maybe I'm too insubordinate to work with somebody. I don't know, but I think the world's happier with me owning my own company and not having to report to
Well, that's
somebody. I
great.
think I would just drive that person crazy.
That's great. Well, it's one of that's really why I do what I do is I think we all have a responsibility and we're all leaders in some way, right? In our families, our communities, our businesses, even if we're not the top dog or the CEO, that we are leaders in many, many ways. And I think we all have a responsibility to lead the world a little bit better than when we first got here. So Trace, I think you're doing that. It's amazing. One final question. I love that picture behind you. Tell me about that picture.
Well, you did this movie, so you should remember. Which one is that? That
That's
is
that
that's the
is
Last Crusade.
that is my favorite Indiana Jones movie is The Last
So
Crusade.
you can't see. I'm actually downstairs in my basement, and this is our movie room. So I've got all the posters around. That's the only one that the camera's on. So my absolute favorite movie series. I remember my dad took me to see that when I was, I don't even remember how old I was, but I remember I really enjoyed it, and it was a special moment for both of us.
It was really a really special series, and Harrison Ford, I love. He's my favorite actor. So,
So I've never met Harrison Ford, but I did see him from afar. My wife and I went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and he owned some property, a good amount of property by the Snake River. And we were whitewater rafting down the Snake River. And the guide pointed, he said, "That's actually Harrison Ford there." And he was starting a fire, and his beard must have been 3 feet long. I don't know if that was just a guy he pointed out, but he said that was Harrison Ford.
well, that's amazing. Well, Trace, again, what's the name? Tell everybody what the name of your company is again.
Sure. It's Blackmore Enterprises.
Awesome. Awesome. And your podcast is Scaling Up H2O.
That's right. And we've got some remarkable guests like yourself on Scaling Up H2O.
And you can find that on any place that you listen to your favorite podcast, you can find your podcast. So I really encourage everybody to do that. You need to talk to somebody who's an expert in good quality water systems. You got to talk to Trace Blackmore.
Thank you, John.
Hey, awesome. Awesome. Have a great day. Good to see you.